pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, call the roll, please.
Dina.
Here.
Rozak.
Here.
Crouch.
Here.
Scarberry.
Here.
Mayor Lansford.
Here. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Mayor, there are no changes to the order of the agenda, but there's a few changes to the instruments in the agenda. You've been given a revised ordinance that deals with the variance and setback item, which is item 4. There's a new one, and when we get to that, the city attorney can tell you why we have a new ordinance to supplant that. Item 5, it's my request that, for reasons we'll explain when we get there, that ordinance instead be a resolution, and we've given you a copy of that resolution. And on item 6, which regards North Point Development Holdings, it's my request that the action item be withdrawn from the agenda. There's a piece of paper on your desk, which is, we'll make this a very short discussion item to make sure that and it references North Point Development Holdings and the redevelopment agreement for the same. These are the essential components of it. It's still not ready in redevelopment agreement form, so it's not ready for your action, but I wanted to make sure this is what council is okay with or discussed in the past. So that's technically withdrawn as an action item, but it's still a discussion item. So with those revisions, Mayor, a motion to approve the amended order of the agenda would be in order.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Clerk, call the roll, please.
Dina.
Aye.
Rozak.
Aye.
Crouch.
Aye.
Scarberry.
Aye.
Mayor Lansford.
Aye. We have a proclamation for Dysautonomia Awareness Month. Whereas dysautonomia is a group of medical conditions that result in the malfunction of the autonomic nervous system, which is responsible for automatic bodily functions such as respiration, heart rate, blood pressure, digestion, temperature control, and more. Whereas some forms of dysautonomia are considered rare diseases such as multiple system atrophy and pure autonomic failure, where other forms of dysautonomia are common, impacting millions of people in the U.S. and around the world, such as diabetic, autonomic neuropathy, neurocardiogenic syncope, and postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Whereas dysautonomia impacts people of any age, gender, race, or background, including many individuals living in the city of Streator. Whereas some forms of dysautonomia can be very disabling, and this disability can result in social isolation, stress on the families of those impacted, and financial hardship. Whereas some forms of dysautonomia can result in death, causing tremendous pain and suffering for those impacted and their loved ones. Whereas increased awareness about dysautonomia will help patients get diagnosed and treated earlier, save lives, and foster support for individuals and families coping with dysautonomia in our community. Whereas Dysautonomia International, a 501c3 non-profit organization that advocates on behalf of patients living with dysautonomia, encourages communities to celebrate Dysautonomia Awareness Month each October around the world. Whereas we seek to recognize the contributions of the professional medical community, patients, and family members who are working to educate our citizens about dysautonomia in the city of Streator. Now therefore, I, Jimmy Lansford, Mayor of the city of Streator, do hereby proclaim the month of October as Dysautonomia Awareness Month. Okay, we'll move to the public comment. Anyone that would like to address the council, step to the podium and state your name, and I'm going to ask the city attorney to keep the time. There's a 3-minute time limit on anyone that would like to speak.
My name is Tony Pettit. I live at 206 LaSalle Street. And I just wanted to come this evening and ask asked the council some months ago, I think it was in March or April of this past year, I had presented some information about crime-free lease addendums and ordinances that other communities have adopted in order to reduce the level of crime and give the landlords a little more control and power over the people that they rent to in the event of criminal activity. And I just wondered, I haven't seen anything or heard anything, whether the council is considering it or is not considering it, or any thoughts on it. I just thought I would check that with you. It's been about 6 months.
Tony, I'm going to suggest that you call and make an appointment with Mr. Wright, the city attorney, and the chief of police, and let them update you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? If not, then there are no presentations, so we'll move to new business. Item 1.
Mayor and Council, items 1 and 2 are both related to the same topic. The city has elected to apply for a Safe Routes to Schools grant program through the Illinois Department of Transportation. The program is limited to certain criteria in certain areas of K-8 school structures, and we've evaluated the city to determine where we can best apply and where that we would be most eligible, and that's in the Riverside area in routes leading to and from Kimes School. So item 1 is the public hearing, which is required as a condition of the grant, and we have advertised that public hearing in accordance with the requirements requisite number of days before. So my recommendation is we open the public hearing and hear whatever public comments that there might be about it, and then during the public hearing I'll ask Jeremy to talk a little bit about how we conceive of the project, and you close the public hearing, and then if it's your desire, then you would authorize at item 2 the submission of the application.
Okay, thank you. I entertain a motion and second to open a public hearing regarding a sidewalk plan and submitting a Safe Routes to School grant. So moved. Okay, vote, Melissa.
Yes.
Anyone from the audience like to,
If we have a motion on the,
oh, I'm sorry.
motion, we need a second.
Pardon?
we have a second, we don't have a roll, we don't have a vote on it.
No, okay. Clerk call roll, please.
Vidae. Aye. Bozak.
Aye.
Crouch.
Aye.
Scarberry.
Aye.
Mayor Lansford.
Aye. Now we'll have comments from anyone in the back.
Jeremy?
Chairman, will start?
You guys all have this in your packet, I think?
Yes. you do.
Apologize, my plotter is actually, the print head's going out, so I got a little red at the bottom, but, so basically, yes, been around, we looked at the Riverside area, as Scott said, as kind of the main focus with the new attendance centers, being the elementary school. Went and talked to the superintendent as well, and we've also been to, I went and met with the principal at Kimes and kind of developed this plan. As you see, basically everything in green on the map are existing sidewalks that would service the Kimes Elementary School. The red are what's proposed. The circled intersections are where there are existing ADA compliant ramps, and the red is where we have to install ADA compliant ramps in the area. So basically the whole plan is, if you were, the Safe Routes to School program is designed to encourage walking, biking to get to school. So we want to encourage that throughout the Riverside area, as well as the existing connections, since it is an attendance center. All kids in the Streator area can attend this school at some point in the K through 2 years. So there's sidewalks along the Main Street Bridge and the Bridge Street Bridge. There's also the Hopalong Cassidy Trail along the levee as access points into the Riverside area. So the thought process in laying this plan was that the students that would like to walk or ride bikes to school would come over Main Street or on Bridge Street. And then in the neighborhood streets, Riverside, Sundown, Bridge, and Carroll, we would install sidewalks down those streets, basically to bring everything to Clark Street. If you've been down to Kimes, they have an existing sidewalk that runs along the south of their parking lot, which is their main entrance into the school for walking and biking. So rather than use Columbus, which is the high volume street, we want to bring all the students and the parents that walk with them into Clark, which is a lower volume street, and then you would come down Clark to the south, enter at the intersection of Clark and Reading, and then into the Kimes school. The other issue that was brought up by the school, and rightfully so, is that there's a bus stop for children that do get bused to school. They come in at Columbus, and Reading, and they exit there. So the plan was to then install a sidewalk along Reading Street to again come back to Clark, and then all the students went into that way. So again, I met with the superintendent and the principal. Next week, in front of the papers, and the school will be doing in the classrooms, as part of the grant, they have to do a survey. Basically, they'll ask every student, how did you get to school today? Did your parents bring you? Did you ride the bus? Did you walk? And there'll be a tally made just to basically gauge the level of walking. So basically, neither poll hurt you. It basically is how you write the story. Is that yes, we have a lot of walkers. We need to help them, or bikers, or why? If you didn't bike or ride to school, why not? And there's no sidewalks. So that's our narrative for the grant. So hopefully to get it. The grant is a $200,000 no local match. So it's funded through the federal highway program. So it's administered by IDOT. So if the city's lucky enough to get the grant, it's a $200,000 straight money grant. It's a highly competitive grant, though, I will say. So, but the plan is to put in the application. It's due on November 19th. So again, those surveys will be out next week. There will actually be parent surveys going home too. So if it makes the paper, or anyone tell your friends at Kimes, parents, please fill that out. It's valuable information. It basically talks about, if you don't ride or bike, was there a reason why? Would you like to see more of it? It's a simple one-page questionnaire, so please fill those back out and return them to the school, and we'll submit those along with our application to IDOT. The project is laid out for all these sidewalks and ramps is $216,000, so that we'll be talking about that at budget time. We're applying for the maximum amount of the grant. So that's it. Any questions? I'm happy to answer them.
Jeremy, does the survey go out to all the students at Kimes, or just those that live on the west side of the Vermilion River?
All students at Kimes.
Does the school have adequate bicycle racks if everybody's considering a bicycle in school?
That's a good call. I have to ask the school. I don't know if I even saw a rack, to be honest. So I have to talk to the principal over there and find out.
Any comments from the audience? Questions?
I guess I have one for Jeremy.
Yes.
I understand that Columbus wouldn't have a sidewalk because it's a major street, and you try to get people off that street.
Yeah, but basically, yeah, for the safety of the students and the parents walking, is to bring them to the lower volume Clark and then into the school, which again is where the existing sidewalk already brings at times. If you see on the aerial, there's a sidewalk that comes in on their east side of their parking lot and wraps around to the front door. So we go to that point.
I go that way every day, and I can tell you that a lot of the children anyway from the west side of Columbus filter down onto Columbus and walk down the street. I mean, every day.
Yeah.
They're not going to go over an extra block to school. They're going to keep going that way.
It's something this is just a preliminary plan. That's the whole point of the public comment. So again, we'll take comments up. It's due the 19th. We'll take comments until the 10th, and then anything received by the 10th will be included in hopefully in the altered plan or anything we need to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would entertain motions second to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Vidae. Aye. Bozak.
Aye.
Crouch.
Aye.
Scarberry.
Aye.
Mayor Lansford.
Aye. Been moving for the second part of it, then I'd entertain a motion to authorize and approve the submission of the Safe Routes to Schools grant submission.
So moved, Jeremy.
For second.
Second.
Any other discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Vidae. Aye. Bozak.
Aye.
Crouch.
Aye.
Scarberry.
Aye.
Mayor Lansford.
Aye. Item 3.
Mayor and Council, in accordance with your direction, the Streator Plan Commission acted as a zoning board of appeals temporarily earlier this month, and they have made a recommendation to you regarding a setback variance. Jeremy, if you'll give us more details, the information's in your packet. Is the petitioner here today? This is the 706 North Jefferson? Okay, they were here at the previous meeting.
Yeah. They came last week. So, but yes, Plan Commission acting as the ZBA unanimously recommended and that the variance be granted. There's 6 findings, I believe, required by the code. They found a positive finding on each of those findings, which is required to grant the variance. The issue is that there's an existing garage on the property at a 2-foot side yard setback. The petitioner would like to tear down the garage that is falling down and build a larger garage. So that was the point for the variance. So the 2-foot setback will not be any worse than it is now, and again, the ZBA recommended approval.
Do we know when the garage was built?
Uh,
How many years ago?
No, I would say at least 30.
So Mayor and Council, it'd be my recommendation that you, if you are like the recommendation, that you vote first to receive and file the recommendation of the Planning Commission, and then, Cheryl, you can explain why we had to replace the ordinances. That would be item 4.
Okay, we'll do the ordinance. We'll do number 3. Entertain a motion to place on file the Zoning Board of Appeals recommendation to approve and grant a variance to allow replacement of an existing garage at a 2-foot side lot line setback at 706 North Jefferson Street.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Clerk, call roll, please.
Vidae. Aye. Bozak.
Aye.
Crouch.
Aye.
Scarberry.
Aye.
Mayor Lansford.
Aye. Now, item 4, Councilor.
I think, I don't mean to speak out of turn while the city clerk is out of town, but I think she inadvertently included a preliminary draft of the ordinance because the draft that was in your packet simply repeated the recommendation from the Board of Appeals, but it didn't have the language saying we are adopting those recommendations and granting the variance as requested. So it was substituted for you this evening as an ordinance which actually grants and approves the variance as the petitioner requested.
So we can vote on that
So
tonight?
you can-
On the amended
On
version.
the amended version. Okay. Entertain a motion to pass the ordinance approving and granting variance from the provisions of the Title 17, Chapter 17.40, density, dimensional, and other regulations, section building setback requirement to allow for replacement of an existing garage at 2 feet side lot setback at 706 North Jefferson. Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Clerk, call the roll, please.
Vidae. Aye. Bozak.
Aye.
Crouch.
Aye.
Scarberry.
Aye.
Mayor Lansford.
Aye. Item 5,
Mayor, as I mentioned earlier at the outset of the meeting, we're replacing this ordinance with a resolution. The resolution simply says, expresses the city's desire to do what you had said at your city council study session in September, which is to create a PACE program, a property assessed clean energy program, which allows up to 20% of the cost of eligible alternative energy and energy saving windows, HVAC systems, and so forth for commercial and industrial development projects. Under the state law, it does not allow for residential, unfortunately, but for commercial and industrial it does, and the developer of the new hotel planned for North Point, the Hilton True, wants to use this as a part of his financing package. And so at the study session, you said that you would do that. The process for getting it implemented is a little bit more elaborate than I had originally thought that it was, and we have to produce a report and make some other findings, which we will do over the next 30 days or so. It's not going to be a problem for getting financing, but the first step is to pass this resolution, and then we'll have a hearing and bring the ordinance for final adoption back to you before the end of the year.
I'd entertain a motion to adopt and approve
The resolution.
the resolution. Property assessed, resolution, clean energy PACE program in the city of Streator.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any other discussion? Clerk, call roll, please.
Vidae. Aye. Bozak.
Aye.
Crouch.
Aye.
Scarberry.
Aye.
Mayor Lansford.
Aye. Item 6, and then that we just want to discuss.
Right, and so there's no action item here, but I wanted to share with you what the agreement's key components are, and that's what this one-page item with these 6. And it's actually related to the action that you just took, which is related to the planned hotel project up at North Point. In 2016 and 2017, this is item 1, about a year apart, actually, the city issued alternative revenue TIF bonds, paid back wholly and exclusively from TIF proceeds, so there's no general fund involvement in this. $3.645 million for TIF eligible projects. Most of that was at North Point, $2.6 million for North Point improvements and renovations and fixing up that strip mall. Of that amount, about $500,000 is allocated to specifically to the hotel project. Although that amount was never codified in a redevelopment agreement. And so that'll be done and will be released only for that project. The developer, number 3, has requested that once the TIF proceeds pay off the bonds, that any remaining TIF proceeds from incremental values to the equalized assessed value on the strip center also be allocated to the project. And he's agreed to also add to that the condition that the hotel be done for that. So there's an additional incentive to get that project done. Item 4 deals with what you just acted on, which is that PACE is a part of financing. In your earlier development meetings with North Point Development Holdings LLC, you indicated that you would provide some marketing assistance in directing some business there and to consider later on a business improvement district. So the redevelopment agreement will be a 6 or 8 page agreement like the other ones with lots of legalese in it, but these are the essential 6 items that will be in it, and so I just wanted to discuss that in advance, and so we'll try to get this to you at the November meeting, but certainly by the end of the year, if all of these are acceptable. We've covered this in previous discussions and study sessions, but it's never been all drawn together in one place before, so I wanted to offer that as a discussion item.
Thank you. Okay.
If there's no objections, then we'll proceed to put it in.
Thank you. Item 7.
Every year, at least a month, sometimes 2 months ahead of when the city has to act on its tax levy ordinance, we have to take separate action with regard to the library. The library is a separate and autonomous part of the tax levy, but it's included in our tax levy, not unlike the fire pension board levy and the police pension board levy, and they get that portion is remitted to them. But in the case of the library, there's a unique situation here. They're entitled to have an additional levy when they have a building project, which is the addition that they put on several years ago on the west side of the library. And so they have an additional 0.02% of the EAV, and they're required to give a notice that they have this extra amount on there, so that if somebody wanted to protest before you act on the final levy in December, then they can. And so that's why this is on your agenda. It's something that you have to do every year at about this time in the run-up to the tax levy ordinance.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to authorize and approve the levy of an additional tax of 0.02% on real property within the city of Streator pursuant to Illinois Code 75/3-1 for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2019 and ending December 31st, 2019 for the Streator Public Library Edition. A motion, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Clerk, call roll, please.
Vidae. Aye. Bozak.
Aye.
Crouch.
Aye.
Scarberry.
Aye.
Mayor Lansford.
Aye. Item 8.
Mayor and Council, at your October study session, you reviewed a draft ordinance that would create honorary street designation. That ordinance, with your revisions, has been recrafted by the city attorney to sort of fit our codification format of the Streator Municipal Code, and so is ready for final action unless you have additional revisions that you'd like to make.
I'd entertain a motion to authorize an ordinance amending the Streator Municipal Code to authorize and regulate honorary street designations.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussions?
Yes. In this ordinance, we're talking about signage for Ruben Soderstrom and Clarence Mulford and Clyde Tombaugh. And being involved in tourism for many years, I would think it'd be better to have different names. Instead of putting their name up, local folk, people in town would notice who these people are. They would know who they are, most likely. But people from out of town would have no clue who most of these people are. So I'm proposing that we name them something different, name it for what they were famous for. Town Ball would be something like Pluto Pathway and dedicated to Clyde Tomball. And from Clarence Mulford, do something like Hopalong Cassidy Trail. I'm just suggesting names, but it could be anything like that. And for Reuben Soderstrom, 40 Gavels Avenue. Something that they're known for doing that would be known nationally maybe. I think we bring more attention to those names.
Comments? I like that idea.
This is not a time-sensitive matter, and
No.
so if you'd like to recraft the names, which is completely within your prerogative to name streets, then, and you'd like to work with Councilman Rozak to come up with some new names, then I just recommend that you table the item until you decide on those, and we can bring it back.
Okay. Made the motion, we need to withdraw the motion.
A motion to table supersedes what's on the agenda, or what's on the floor.
I'll make a motion to table.
Your second? Okay. Clerk, call roll.
Vidae. Aye. Bozak.
Aye.
Crouch.
Aye.
Scarberry.
Aye.
Mayor Lansford.
Aye.
Yeah, just as a point of clarification, would you like to have Ed maybe circulate those ideas that you comment on them and get them back to me?
Yeah, I think that'd be nice to have additional input that we get from the public also, what they think about this, maybe the media could suggest that, so. Is it okay to have it directed to you? Is that all right? Media?
We'll circulate that around.
If you're going to put anything in the paper in regards to this from the radio that they got suggestions that they contact Councilman Rozak with any ideas? Did we take a roll call?
Yes, you did.
So now we're on to number 8. Or 9.
Number 9.
Number 9.
So you have a city council policy on vacation of streets and alleys and other right-of-ways whereby we give the notice to adjoining property owners. Before Jeremy makes a brief report about this, I wanted to let you know that all that's been done in accordance with your policy. Sure.
Thank you. Yes, the product I don't have, I think it's 906 Laura, the owner of that property. I don't see tonight, but his petition for the vacation of the north half of the alley that runs north-south between Laura and Missouri Street. So it's just the 20-foot section across the frontage, her eastern frontage. The alley would still remain open on the south end, as well as it's an unimproved alley all the way through, as well as there's an east-west alley that joins it and runs back to the west. So that would all stay open south of the 906 Laura address. Up until today, we actually had no comments. I received one by email. Basically, it was a neighbor stating that they would not like to see it closed. And in the email, it actually referenced a second neighbor that also, it said that they were also opposed. Police chief, public director, and I went out there. We had no municipal need for the alley, so I don't know if there's anyone here, a neighbor that would like to voice any concerns, but from city's perspective or staff's perspective, there's no need for the alley. The petitioner is basically doing it to have a fence. To include, they've been mowing it forever. It's an unimproved alley, never been paved.
Anybody in the audience have questions about that? Do they live in that neighborhood? the north half of that vacated. And did we request that or who requested
No, the owner of 906 Laura requested it be
it?
vacated.
Okay, the individual on Laura's.
Yes, the one whose property is
Right
adjacent.
there in the corner.
So the individual that you got the email from,
It is a neighbor that lives along Walnut.
And he still has access.
Still has
to his
access
garden
from the south.
From,
Yes.
yes.
Well, and the alley from Bazaar Street up is still open, yeah.
I did get a chance to respond to that email that came in today.
Yeah. Weren't there some phone calls today at City Hall? Getting, you didn't get in?
Yes, they were, but I think that they're from the same individuals that Jeremy has already mentioned.
so there's no urgency to vote on this request, I mean, from anybody, for any reason.
The petitioner came in, a month ago and requested it, but, so again, I didn't have a chance even to call that petitioner and let her know that there'd been an objection, so.
But the objectors on Walnut have access from the south. But yes, you can hold it over
I was
to.
gonna say, you wanna hold it over till we check with this guy that complained today?
I don't see the need for that.
Well, that's,
Up to that point. I mean, I'd be
you wanna
doing
take
the same
action
thing.
on the item the way it is?
I'd rather hold it over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so, let's give them
Right.
one more look.
We can hold it over.
Is it okay with you, Joe?
Yeah,
Hold
that's
it
fine.
up. Is it okay?
Motion to table.
Table that. We need a motion to
Yes.
table. Entertain a motion to table.
So moved.
Second. Any other discussion? Clerk, call roll, please.
Vidae. Aye. Bozak.
Aye.
Crouch.
Aye.
Scarberry.
Aye.
Mayor Lansford.
Aye. I'd entertain a motion, on number 10, I'd entertain a motion to approve the mayoral appointments. This is serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals to serve a term ending 2021. Andy Harkar, Larry Libby, Terry O'Neill. To serve a term ending 2023. Ron Connor, Archie Crouch, Alan Hall, Robert Oldenholzer. Motion to approve those acts.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? Clerk, call roll, please.
Vidae. Aye. Bozak.
Aye.
Crouch.
Abstain. You don't have to because you don't have a, you don't have a financial conflict of interest.
Scarberry.
Aye.
Mayor Lansford.
Aye. Item 11, consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with Councilman Scarberry abstaining from section B.
So, second.
Any other discussion? Clerk, call roll, please.
Vidae. Aye. Bozak.
Aye.
Crouch.
Aye.
Scarberry.
Aye.
Mayor Lansford.
Aye. Sarah, do you have any comments?
No, I just wanted to mention, some time ago, we started that TIF process with the Route 18 TIF. And as of Thursday, so tomorrow morning, they're gonna do the official groundbreaking on the Villas of Hollybrook. So I just wanted to, thank those who did the work to get that going. I know adding TIF is not a quick and easy job, so, but it's good to see that, with 60 healthcare jobs coming to Streator, so I'm glad to see that that's moving forward and we're going to get some action taking place. And just with that said, there's been, with all the construction equipment and lifts and all the stuff going on downtown, not on the north end of town, it's been nice having people ask me what's going on all over the place and seeing some progress and some new additions and everything to Streator, so.
Jeremy, is this a $9 million project?
Roughly.
When this is going to create 60 new jobs? This is nice. Ed, you have anything?
Yeah, I'll go off my normal tourism route here tonight. I came into city government from a commissioner form of government many years ago. I wasn't a commissioner, but I was a councilman when the form of government changed. And it has worked very well. In the last few years, things are finally moving along much faster. And it takes many years. People think somebody comes into an office, a mayor or city manager, and by next year we're going to have all these things going. Many of the projects you see going now have been in-house probably 3 or 4 years, and they're finally developing and happening. And I just encourage everyone to look at voting for this form of government.
Brian, anything?
I'd just like to encourage everybody to get out and vote in the upcoming election. It's coming up quick.
Joe?
Just thank the people that attended the meeting, took time out of their schedule, and trick or treats. It'll be the end of the month. Please be careful.
I assume that the scouts in the audience get badged tonight for being here, is that right? Thank you for being here. Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Clerk call roll, please.
Vidae.
Aye.
Bozak.
Aye.
Couch.
Aye.
Scarberry.
Aye.
Mayor Lansford.
Aye.